But that's not exclusive to her character. I've seen that written many times with characters where they try to make them these broken characters, and like essentially that's all they just write a jerk character essentially. And I'm like, this is I get that sometimes when you're broken you can act like very defensive to people and stuff like that, but fuck, calm down a little bit.
Welcome to Bar City, episode 23. I'm Eric.
Kevin.
Oh, so you've been enjoying your weekend, Kevin?
Yeah, I guess it's been relaxing. I'll say that much. So I haven't really done anything. It's been kind of boring.
Yeah. I hadn't done a lot because I've been trying to let my shoulder heal up because I done something that kept feeling like my ribs were out of place.
Yeah,
Kept hurting my shoulder blade.
that's not good.
But
Yeah, I was so tired yesterday, so I spent most of the day just kind of relaxing, just sitting in front of my computer. I try not to do that all day, but I was just, like I said, I was just so tired. So
sometimes it be that way.
yeah,
So I attempted to watch the 2019-2020 movie of The Grudge.
the
2019 or 2020, one of the two.
okay, 19.
The Grudge or whatever.
Yeah,
And I got about halfway through it, and I'm like, I might have to go get finish it today.
mm-hmm.
But it was really confusing to me. It was like, spoiler for anybody who's not watched the movie. And so I guess the one of the ladies that was working with the realtor company that lived here in America, she was over in Japan working with the realtor company or whatever for that house that had the Juhan.
Yeah,
And I know the spec they can follow you anywhere, but for some reason when they followed her back to America, and I guess she ended up killing her family and herself before it could get to her or something. I'm not 100% sure. At least that's what the police think. She killed her family and then herself. And but it created that house to be another one, but here in America.
yeah.
I'm like, I don't think it's supposed to work that way.
I don't know the specifics on those kind of ghosts or whatever.
In the other movies,
The only one I've seen was the one, I think it came out in the mid 2000s. I can't remember the exact year. I watched it on like HBO one random night when I was like a teenager. I thought it was boring, but I don't really find kid ghosts to be like scary. I've never found kids to be scary. So,
well, it's not just a kid ghost, the mother as well.
well, I didn't find her to be scary either. So,
Well, you would if you actually knew the true story. So the American Juhan for which we call The Grudge,
yeah,
because in Japan's Juhan, which is what the spirit's originally called, actually freaking terrifying. Like, if you want to really get into depth in that world, go on Netflix and watch Juhan Origins.
yeah.
It is freaking psychological. Like, there's a scene that makes me, and I guess it hits me because I lost a kid.
Yeah.
So the scene makes it worse for me. And so there's a whole bit, and it's just so I guess it's originally supposed to be a book series or something.
Oh, really?
The investigator wrote. It was turned into Japanese movies, which somewhat followed the book stories. And then America, of course, Americanized it to The Grudge and completely just kept the base bones.
Yeah.
So the show Juhan Origins is supposed to be more faithful adaptation. And the whole point in the house, though, is because of the spirit in it.
Yeah.
Curse Juhan. it has moments where it like bends time and space. And alters what you see. Like the girl does something in the past, sees something through the window, and herself in the future sees it and sees something through the window because she's on the outside of the house, and one of them throws something through the window and it affects the other one. It's a whole weird, trippy thing.
Yeah, I think we kind of did the same thing with The Ring as well, right? Because I think that was originally a Japanese movie that we Americanized. I don't remember the whole backstory of it, but The Ring was The Ring, the one that came out in the early 2000s. I think it's just called The Ring, right? And that one actually scared me when I was like a kid, but then when I rewatched it again as an adult. I think I actually own the DVD somewhere. And when I rewatched it, I was like, "This movie's boring," but I was older by then, so
yeah. And then that movie, because they changed her storyline in a sense, they add to it, and like the latest one that I've seen of it had the guy who actually impregnated her mother in it, and he blinded himself so he couldn't accidentally run into the film.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because he knew what happened to his daughter and that she was a curse.
Yeah.
And it became this thing where people started throwing it on the internet. Oh, weird thing. They went a little overboard with it.
Yeah, well, people always do.
It's like with some horror movies, you don't need more than two.
Yeah.
Some horror movies don't even.
Some of them I find scariest. Yeah, if you just keep it at one, because sometimes they have such a good ending, and it kind of ruins the ending when you make a sequel. So, depending on how you make the sequel. So,
well, like the second one for The Ring was good to me.
Yeah,
because it was her trying to actually like figure it out more, and she just like I thought that she was supposed to actually help her, but she didn't help her. It was a whole, and she was the ring girl. Starts with an S. Can't remember her name. She's trying to become back to life through her son, through the main chick's kid.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting thing, but with some horror movies, they end up going left field, especially after the second one. Like the second one is sometimes an alright continuation, but then the third, fourth, are just so
happy. Oh yeah.
Like,
it always seems like they do that mostly with horror movies, especially slasher movies. They always make like multiple sequels. I guess because they're kind of cheap and easy to make, so compared to other movies. So.
Well, slasher films are different when you make multiples of it because as long as you keep the slasher himself to how he is, you just put a new group of people through the situation.
Yeah.
And or if, on the first one or the second one, if the main character still survived, you can just continue them having to now, like with the Nightmare on Elm Street series, when Nancy ends up trying to help these group of kids in the Dream Warriors, she's been dealing with this.
Yeah.
She's trying to help these kids who are now going through it. That I like.
Yeah.
Okay with that. As long as it's done right. But with slasher films, the problem with slasher films a lot of times is less a sequel situation and more of a remake situation.
Yeah, I agree with that. Usually the remakes are not that great. So,
because like I love the first Rob Zombie Halloween remake.
Yeah.
Because I did like the fact that we seen Michael going a little as an older kid instead of as young as he was.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still young because he's still a kid, but
right, he wasn't like 6. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like the psychological aspect of it from a psychiatrist point of view.
Yeah.
But the second one kind of threw me off, especially the ending. Because, like I get that he survived, and it was kind of cool watching him roam around without the mask for a little bit.
Yeah.
and beat the shit out of some hillbilly rednecks.
Yeah. It is fair to say Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 technically isn't a remake of Halloween 2. It's a sequel to the remake of the first stuff.
Yeah.
So it is fair to say that's sort of its own movie. So.
Yeah.
Versus the first one where it actually does, other than like the first part of the movie, once you get to the part where he gets the mask on, it just kind of feels like you're watching Halloween, the modern day version of Halloween. So
the thing I hated
everything leading up to that is like the new stuff. So
I hate his Laurie.
Especially, yeah, I'm not a big fan of Laurie in those movies actually. In either one, I don't like her in the first or the second one actually. So.
See, I love the actress. She did very well.
Yeah, I'm sure she did a great job with what she was presented with. Yeah.
So if you listen to this, we're not dishing the actress. She was great. She's a lovely person.
Yeah.
But the script that Rob Zombie wrote.
Yeah.
For her line, especially in the second one when she's sitting there, that. What the fuck?
She has a lot of weird lines in the both movies. Yeah.
And he like doubled down in the second one with her line.
Oh God, yeah. And I thought the way he treated her in the sequel was a little cliche too, because it's like, oh, she's messed up from the events that happened in the first one. Makes sense. But it's like he just turns her into like a punk. I was like, well, that's about as generic as you can get.
Yeah. It's like, I did like the way, because like in the original, Laurie wasn't as, physically fucked up.
Yeah.
Which kind of is like, because she did go through fucking hell.
Yeah.
She was thrown around and she, and the fact that, so this Laurie being a little bit more broken, a little scarred, having some, the battle wounds was kind of cool. But her mentality is what I have issues with. I get, psychosis.
Yeah.
But there is a difference between psychosis and just being a fucking bitch.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's not exclusive to her character. I've seen that written many times with characters where they try to make them these broken characters, and like essentially that's all they just write a jerk character essentially. And I'm like, this is, I get that sometimes when you're broken you can act like very defensive to people and stuff like that, but calm down a little bit,
Well, if they over exaggerate the problem.
Yeah. Well, most shows and movies have a tendency to do that. Yeah.
I call it, and a few of my friends in my group, we call it the CW effect.
Yeah.
Or when it comes to over dramatic of that kind of nature, we call it CW effect. If it's over dramatically happy, we call it the Hallmark effect.
Yeah.
Because in Hallmark, they
I like that. How y'all broke that down. That's funny. Yeah.
But the CW, when it comes to drama and attitude, they go very out there. Everything, the smallest minute thing that would typically just cause a discussion in a CW world causes a big ass argument. Like relationship ending arguments, and then all of a sudden the next episode they're friends again. What?
I can't stand crap like that where they try to make you like really feel for this moment, and then literally the next episode they just kind of piss all that away, and it's like, oh, never mind. Yeah.
That's what I'm able to.
Like, and then they do it over and over and over again in some shows and movies.
I'm grateful to a few shows that the CW's done that somewhat broke the mode, but kept it in some aspects. Yeah. But there was some, like Smallville, there were some situations like, okay, I wish they would have handled, would work on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because that needs to really actually affect the relationship, but it doesn't. But then there's other things I'm like, okay, this actually affected it fully.
Excuse me. Yeah.
They come back on certain things. And then you got like Vampire Diaries also the same way. Yeah. And then you got Supernatural, which most of the way they solve their problems is they get into a fight with each other and beat the shit out of each other and they're done. But I guess it's brothers. so Vampire Diaries originals, Smallville, Supernatural. Those are the 4 shows that are like the perfect CW mount. Like they do have their seasons where they start going a little too much of the CW effect.
Yeah.
But then they calm it back down, which is great.
Yeah.
But like the spinoff from Originals and Vampire Diaries, Legacies, gets the full CW treatment. And I'm like, I can't even stand this show. It's a continuation of 2 of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Like, one of the main characters is a phoenix, and he doesn't do anything cool but resurrect. I'm like, phoenixes are firebirds. Give him some fire abilities or something. Be creative. Or make him able to be very potent with magic because he's a magical creature.
Yeah.
Something. Give this man something. But all he's there for is to be the love interest and, breakup thing for the main character.
Yeah.
Who's a tribrid because she's the child of a hybrid of a vampire and werewolf, Klaus, and her mother was a werewolf witch. So she's a tribrid. But yet she never turns into a vampire. She never fully awakens her third of her 2. She's a werewolf with witch magic. But she never uses vampiric stuff. So I'm like, she's a tribrid, but you're only using her hybridness.
Yeah.
But come on, people. Why are you limiting your characters? So it's just...
That was my most... I mean, I hadn't seen this show in so long, but the show, The Fosters, I really liked a lot of the characters in that show, which is what pulled me into the show. But they just kept doing that annoying crap where they kept, like I said, they try really, really hard to make you feel for this one moment of something happening that was really heartbreaking or whatever. And then it's like the next episode, nope, that doesn't matter, and it's literally never brought up again, never later in the season. Cause I kept thinking, oh, well, maybe it'll come back up later, nope, it's never brought back up, not in that season or the next. I was like, God, I can't. And they do it, and it would be one thing if they did it a couple of times, but they do it multiple times throughout the show, and it's very annoying to me.
I can forgive Smallville because it was so early in the 2000s.
Yeah,
and a lot of things in the 2000s was. I don't need to speak on that.
Yeah,
everyone who's lived through the 2000s knows what I'm talking about. How movies and shows were definitely then. And then but then they get their ground eventually, especially in later seasons. And then Supernatural, of course, again in the 2000s, the monster of the week kind of things didn't really fully matter, except for a slight few things. And then they finally get their ground later in.
Yeah.
Vampire Diaries made a lot of things matter. Like, eventually some of the past stuff no longer matters, which is fine to me. Because, if it's season 7 and you're still bringing up shit from season 1 and 2, that's a little too much.
Yeah.
Especially if it's on a character who, actually character development, especially Damon, who started out, he's the asshole vampire brother and this and that, and he's obsessed with the vampire chick who turned them and this whole thing, and eventually he moves on from her and he starts growing, becomes less of an asshole, but keeps his, cheekiness.
Yeah.
And things that he used to do is no longer really fully brought up, except for by maybe an enemy. So I'm like, okay, that's story building. That's character development. That's great.
Yeah.
But if literally in episode 4 of season 1, someone snaps someone's neck, and here you are at season 5, forget all about what happened in season 4, and you're happy with this dude all of a sudden, he's your best friend. That's a little, yeah. And a lot of shows do that. And I call a lot of that the CW effect. That's what we call it, like I said, because that's primarily CW's thing.
Yeah, I like that, how y'all categorize that. That's funny.
Well, it's because if you look at most channels, there's a lot of things that don't actually do that.
Yeah.
It's just a trope of the CW shows.
Yeah.
It's like they accidentally started doing that on all their shows. So, like, you know what? We're just going to keep doing it. This is the way we...
Like, we like doing it this way. Let's just keep doing this. Yeah.
And, of course, the hallmarking things is just making everything so overly happy.
Yeah. Everything's wonderful now.
The funny thing is, there's not a TV. I guess sci-fi-ing it up wouldn't work because that would just be the sci-fi actually doesn't have any tropes because none of their stuff is actually theirs for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, like, you can call, there's horror tropes. You just the horror troping it up. It's just a horror trope. That doesn't. Trying to think of another actual like TV channel that does the exact same thing over and over with all its fucking shows and movies. I guess AMC does a lot of like. No, AMC's kind of a balance.
I don't know what Fox does now, especially now that they're owned by Disney. But back in the day, I know back in the late '90s, early 2000s, they had a tendency to. They wouldn't show, like, when the production, like the company would have, really the show was intended to be in a certain order, but Fox for some reason liked to air certain episodes out of different orders just because I guess they thought certain episodes would be more popular than others. And so sometimes when you watch the original airing versus the chronological order, it doesn't make any sense. And like I said, that I don't think they do that anymore, though. That was something they did back in the day. So.
I think MTV did that once. I think, wasn't it the MTV got in trouble because they had a Spider-Man show?
Did it?
When they weren't supposed to have it?
Oh, I never heard about that.
I'm trying to remember which Spider-Man it was.
Yeah.
But they showed it in out of order.
Yeah.
And so when you were watching it on TV, it made no fucking sense.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a Fox thing. So. I know they did that with Sliders, because when Sliders first came out, it was on Fox. But later on, they got bought by Sci-Fi. But when it originally aired, and because of that, the airing, if you look at there's like two different lists if you look it up online that says, well, air order is this, this, and this, but this is actually the chronological order.
It was the MTV Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it had Neil Patrick Harris as Spider-Man.
Really? Oh, yeah, I could see him as talking to Spider-Man. I could see him, especially Peter Parker. Yeah.
Because it was out of order, it made things that were like originally happened seem to have not been important to the next episode.
Yeah.
Because most likely there's a chance the next episode for that one season they were able to do was actually predates that incident.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do people do this? Why?
They just got to fuck everything up. Yeah. And then it causes confusion for years to come. I know they did the same thing with video games where they, instead of releasing, they would rename the game. Like they did that with the Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 2, when it first came to America, was actually Final Fantasy 4, but they called it Final Fantasy 2 so people would get confused. But then it just caused years of confusion.
Oh, there's another one that did that. It's like when things come to America, especially if it's overseas.
Yeah.
they'll alter the name.
Nowadays we have the internet to and it makes it a little easier. Now people still confused, but at least it makes it easier. But back in the day, people were like, they just didn't know.
Also, you got to count with Final Fantasy. They also like to do like 10, 10 2, 13, 13 2.
Oh, yeah. They make sequels to that actual game. Yeah. Because technically, when it's the full on next game, it's a completely new story. But yeah.
Well, the thing is, and they'll do that. And sometimes they'll release the second part, the two of the same number.
Yeah.
After they've released, like, well, I remember correctly, 10-2 came after 12 has already been released. Or was already announced.
Yeah, it did. 10-2, came after 12.
So, like, wait, 10-2?
Yeah, it came after Final Fantasy 11 and Final Fantasy 12. Yeah, but technically 10-2 is a sequel to 10, so they were okay with it, I guess. So.
Yeah. Well, and also for America, I think it was 11 that never came to America for the longest time.
Yeah, there was a delay on it because 11 is an online game, just like 14 is. But there was a delay, I guess, issues maybe with the servers. I don't know, but
yeah, that kind of irritated a lot of people because we just get done playing 2, and then only one next one we could play, especially if you're a console player, is 12.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck happened between...
Like, where did 11 go? Oh, this online game was 11. Oh, okay. And it hadn't even been released to America yet. Yeah.
Final Fantasy, or like anything Japanese is a lot of times horrible about doing that. Or, what irritates me is when they start making prequel games.
Oh, prequels? Yeah.
Yeah, because I typically don't like prequels. Like, I accepted it for Star Wars because...
Yeah. They can be good if you do them right, but they're very tricky to pull off because people sometimes will get their own mindset on how things work. And when you go back and try to do that, in their mind, it feels like you're changing things because they're coming in from their point of view. Yeah.
The thing is with Star Wars...
Yeah.
He had already written the prequel series first.
Yeah.
He had written 1 through 6 already.
Yeah.
But he actually couldn't do anything 1 through 3 because of the scale it was supposed to be. Because with 1 through 3, it's supposed to be a bigger galactic battle. To the start of the fall of the Jedi and the Republic. And with 4, 5, and 6, the galactic battles weren't as big because the Republic was so, destroyed. So he didn't have to. There was less, space battles. So he waited to do the majority of his space battles that he wanted to do until technology got better. But also with Star Wars, with him, he changes things in directing at the same time. Because, Anakin Skywalker actually wasn't supposed to be Darth Vader. You there?
Yeah.
But yeah, did you know that Anakin wasn't actually supposed to be Darth Vader?
I didn't know that. I thought they called... But Luke refers to Darth Vader as Anakin in Episode 6. Or did he change that in the original series?
He's changed that in the original series.
Oh, okay.
So, in the middle of producing the movies, so 4 and 5, up until you announces it in 5, I think it is. Is it the end of 4 or in 5 that Luke gets his hand cut off?
The end of 5.
So that moment is when he decided to alter it. So Anakin was actually supposed to have been the last Jedi that actively fought against the Empire. And him and Vader were actually supposed to have been best friends. So when you listen to it, and Obi-Wan says, and Ben Kenobi says, Vader killed your father, he was actually telling the truth, because it's how it was supposed to have been.
Yeah.
But he didn't tell anyone till that day that he altered it. Like, the guy who's actually in the Darth Vader suit, course, he was kind of pissed that they dubbed over his voice. He actually said, He actually said the line right the way it was originally done, but George Lucas had the dub dude, if I remember correctly, dub it in the way he wanted it said when he altered it to him being his father.
Yeah.
So, Mark Hamill's reaction was surprised because he didn't actually know that he was about to be told that was actually his father the entire time. Yeah. That's why it's such a big reveal to everyone. Even the cast was surprised.
Yeah, I'd seen a documentary on that before. From my understanding, the only people who knew about it was George Lucas, some of the other writers, and James Earl Jones, of course, who talks for Darth Vader, knew it because he had to read the script. And because he admitted in the thing when he first read that in the script, he thought, there's no way that's true. Darth Vader must be lying. He didn't think that was actually true, but then it turns out that it was. So,
yeah.
But yeah, only a few people knew about it because they really were trying to be hush hush about it. So
yeah, when he changed his mind and went to alter it that way, he's like, hush hush. So it just makes it funny when Ben makes the comment in a certain point of view.
Yeah, that was their way of trying to get out of it, I guess.
Yeah.
And even Luke questions on that. He's like, a certain point of view. And I was like, yeah, no kidding.
But in reality, the certain point of view means Darth Vader did kill Anakin because Anakin became Vader.
The dark side. It's kind of a cop-out answer, but yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of he killed who he once was.
Yeah.
He killed the sweet, the powerful, the true, the great, commander in the for the Jedi, and became a Sith.
Yeah.
But originally, it was supposed to actually be two different people, which to me probably would have, in my opinion, would have been better in some aspects because it would have been cooler in the prequel movies to see Anakin and that friend fight.
Yeah, I guess. Depends on how they executed it, but yeah.
Yeah. I love it either way.
So I've been doing some research on now I'm about to get into some nerdy stuff. So I've been doing some research on the timeline of the Elder Scrolls.
Yeah.
Of like how their whole calendar timeline works and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that, obviously there's a first era, second era, third era, because if there's a third and fourth era, obviously that you assume there's a first and second. But I didn't realize how long the first era was until I looked it up. I was just like, because I was looking up and I was like, yeah, because I was like, Daggerfall takes place in this year, and I was like, I know Morrowind takes place in this year, and then I was just like, and that's what got me thinking. I was like, how long does the second era last? Because I looked up, because then they talked about the games, because I knew that the Elder Scrolls Online takes place in the second era, because it takes place before any of the other games. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, it takes place in this year. And I did not realize that the old game from the 90s is actually an adventure game. The Redguard, Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard. I didn't realize that game took place in the second era. For some reason, I was thinking it took place in the third era. And I was like, how long does the second era last? So that's when I looked it up. And I was just like, so the second era lasts almost 1,000 years. But the first era lasts like almost 3,000 years. And I'm like, there's not even any games that take place in the era. That's all just backstory and lore. And I was just like, I didn't realize the first era was that dang long. I was like, geez. It's like every era gets shorter and shorter. The first era, and then the second era is shorter than the first one. And then the third era only lasts it's a little under 500 years. And then you get to of course, the fourth era is still theoretically, I guess, Elder Scrolls 6 might be in the fourth era. Who knows? But it's still kind of going. But yeah, so I was like, that's interesting. I didn't realize that first era was that dang long.
if I remember correctly, be in the first era that basically the dwarves went missing.
Ooh. Oh, my hair. The doors to what?
The dwarves. Well, they're
The
basically
dwarves. Yeah. The dwarves are what are they? Don't they call them the Dwemer and the
Dwemer? Yeah.
Yeah. Because they were the ones that made all that really cool technology stuff. So
yeah.
No.
I think the dragons disappeared in the second era.
Something like that, yeah. Because they weren't seen for like, at least not in the main world anyway, for a really long time. So.
And then, yeah, there's a lot of lore.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have that. That's just literally scratching the surface. I mean, you could literally spend a lifetime just looking up stuff. You know, a never-ending rabbit hole there of lore in the Elder Scrolls. So.
Yeah. I mean,
But yeah, I thought that was interesting. I didn't realize that the first era was that dang long. Like I said, I also didn't realize that. I also didn't realize that the game Battlespire took place during the Elder Scrolls Arena, like the very first Elder Scrolls game. Like I was like, man, so that means those games were going on during the exact same time. I was like, I didn't know that. I thought Battlespire was a sequel to Daggerfall. I didn't realize it was a prequel. So.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you don't have just the first era and all that.
Yeah. There's actually eras that come before that. Yeah.
Of course, you have.
It's sort of like when you think about our Gregorian calendar. Like we have years that come before like year one, but that's because we're marking backwards from there. So you kind of think about theirs the same way. They probably started counting their calendar at, if this was actually a real world. If they started counting their calendar at like the first era, but they knew that time existed before that, so they kind of made up these eras to backtrack. So very interesting.
Because you had the Dawn era, the Merithic era, the first era, second era, third era, fourth era. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you count all the years of just the first or fourth eras, that would be almost 5,000 years. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Give or take some years there.
Because in the Dawn era, also known as the beginning times, was highly magical period during which time followed in incomprehensible non-linear path, and the very laws of nature remained unset, making a timeline an artificial fabrication. The cosmos were created from the abyss, and time began. The gods, known as Etida, formed and created the immortal plane Nirn. Now, conflict was simultaneously a mere ideological difference of opinions and a manifest war. This war manifest metaphors renders the incapable of supporting a narrative. Since fixed dates during this time are unknowable, there is no specific nomenclatural. I can't pronounce that word. For years. Within the Dawn era ended with the exodus of the gods and magic from Nirn at the Adamantine Tower at the event known as Convention.
Yeah. Again, and stuff like that is still scratching the surface. I listened to a podcast years ago about Elder Scrolls, and they were talking about, the actual canon lore, but they were like, there's actually lore outside of that. They actually have there's fan made lore too, where they start talking about fucking shit that happens like on the moon and shit on their moons. I was just like, it gets really out there. Like when you start digging into all that.
Oh yeah, the funny thing about the Merithic era, which is ME 2500 to ME 1,
yeah,
is actually it was a prehistoric period of time after the exodus of the gods and subsequent supremacy of elves in Tamriel. Indeed, the term Merethic comes from the Old Nordic language, literally the era of the elves.
Yeah. Yeah, because Tamriel originally was just full of beast folk, and then the elves came first, and then the humans came later. So,
Yep. The Merethic era is numbered in reverse order, extending from ME 2500, the date of construction of the Adamantine Tower in the distance past, to ME 1, the year before the founding of the Kamaran dynasty. During the early Merethic era, the Aboriginal beast folk ancestors of the Khajiit and Argonians lived in pre-literal communities throughout Tamriel. The first elves, known as the Aldemir, left their doomed and now lost continent of Aldemirius and settled in southwestern Tamriel before spreading across the rest of the continent and splitting into distinct racial groups. God, I can't speak today. Some of these elves later went on to establish empires and create the powerful metaphysical towers that exist across Tamriel. Humans from Atamora began migrating to Tamriel as early as ME 1000 and built settlements in High Rock, Hammerfell, Cyrodiil, and Black Marsh. These Nedic people were a minority in a land of elves and had no choice but to live peacefully with the various elven race. Towards the late Merethic era, the Atamorian hero Ysgramor led a... That's how you say it, Ysgramor? I've heard it said so many times in Skyrim.
Yeah, don't get me lying.
But I can't remember how they pronunciate it. Led a great colonizing fleet to Tamriel and settled in the northern lands, later known as Skyrim. Ysgramor didn't submit to the authority of the elves, and ultimately this led to a mass slaughter known as the Night of Tears.
Yeah.
Ysgramor's retaliation changed the face of Tamriel as he waged war against the elves, which led to the weakening of their rule. Eventually, Ysgramor exterminated the elves of Skyrim and established his kingdom. Around this time, the authority of the dragon cult took hold, and dragons terrorized Skyrim for an age, before they were eventually overthrown during the Dragon War in the closing years of the Merethic era. So the dragons were never in the first into the eras until the fourth era.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
They were pre-first era.
Yeah, they go way back.
Yep. First era, which goes from 1E0 to 1E 2920.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot of years.
I had no idea the first era was that long. I don't know how many years I was thinking, but it wasn't that many.
So. The first era, sometimes referred to as the First Age, can be characterized by the rise and expansion of numerous human empires and the decline of elven authority across Tamriel. In the early years, the Nords of Skyrim established one of the first great empires under King Vrij, who initiated multiple military expansions that pushed past the borders of Skyrim and into High Rock and Morrowind. Around the same time, the human slaves of the Alid rose up under the leadership of the slave queen Alicia and rebelled against their elven overlords. Alongside the heroes Belinal, Whitestrake, and Morhias, Alicia would continue to liberate slaves and fight Daedric armies, culminating in the Aliad's defeat at the White Gold Tower the establishment of the Elysian Empire. When the Aleid Empire fell, the Dirani elves saw a brief rise to power, becoming a formidable economic and military power in High Rock. The Dirani hegemony? I'm butchering these names sometimes, I guess. Also welcomed many fleeing Aelids who migrated to High Rock to escape persecution in an exodus known as the Aleid Diaspora. While the Dirani hegemony, I'm never going to be able to pronounce that word, managed to conquer High Rock and even some parts of Skyrim and Hammerfell. A war with the Elysian Empire weakened their power in High Rock. In the following years, the Dirani could no longer challenge the emerging Breton nobility who seized power throughout most of High Rock. There's a lot going on in this era.
Yeah.
I love the lore for Elder Scrolls.
Oh, I do too.
The early to middle part of the first era became known as the Classical period. It was after this time a phenomenon known as a dragon break took place across much of Tamriel for 1,008 years.
Oh, yeah.
During this time, linear time was broken and became non-linear. When linear time resumed, one of the first recorded events was the destructive Thracian plague that devastated more than half of Tamriel's population. God damn. After it was discovered, the plague was released by the Slod, an armada of ships known as the All Flags Navy, was built and waged war upon the Slod. Sload. So I'm guessing Slod. Resulting in the destruction of their homeland. Following years of internal strife within the Elysian Order, bloated priesthood and territorial movements to curtail or outlaw the Order's religion, the War of Righteousness broke out. Western Cyrodiil isolated itself from the Elysian Empire and establishes the Colovian Estates, and after a decade of conflict, the war concluded and the Elysian Order and Empire are dissolved. The Emperor's former territories solidified their independence, and its heartland, Cyrodiil, splits into eastern and western halves to continue to diverge culturally over the following centuries. Is there ever an era of peace in Tamriel? God dang.
It's kind of like when you think about the history of America after, English people came over here. It's like there's really not been a time almost where we really haven't been in war of some kind. I was just like, geez. I was like, do we ever know how to sit back and relax?
Yeah. Eventually, Cyrodiil was reunified when Raymond I established the Second Empire. After defeating and invading Akaviri army, the Riemann conquest saw Riemann expand his empire to conquer almost all of Tamriel, save for Morrowind. His son, Emperor Riemann II, attempted to claim Morrowind during the Fourscore War, but died in battle. The war was continued by his successor, Brazilius Dor, and Riemann III. However, Riemann III and his son and heir, Prince Juliek, were both assassinated by the Morag Tong in 1E 2920. Akaviri Potentate Versudi Zai assumed the imperial throne and ratified the Servient Truce, which ended the Destrius Fourth Score War. with Morrowind and ushered in the Second Era. Which the Second Era, according to this, was from 2E1 to 2E896.
Yeah.
The Second Era, sometimes referred to as the Common Era, was the tumultuous period of time as power shifted multiple times across numerous conflicts. The era began with the Akaviri Potentate ruling the vast Second Empire. Vasudi Zai sat up on the throne until his assassination in the 4th century and was succeeded by his son Zavirian Chorak, who suffered the same fate a century later. The death of the Akaviri Potentate brought about the Second Empire's dissolution and in turn heralded a period of conflict known as the Interregnum. They just can't get a fucking break. Why all the war? Tamriel provinces reasserted their independence, and the remnants of the Second Empire nominally served as the Emperor of Cyrodiil, a rump state confined to Cyrodiil that was ruled by a succession of warlords. The geopolitical effects of the interregnum were both far-reaching and varied. For example, High Rock, an area with an extensive history of factionalism, was more able to deal with the collapse of central power and fared much better than the rest of Tamriel, lapsing back into its usual structure of kingdoms and city-states without difficulty. In contrast, Skyrim was divided as never before when it split into two kingdoms, Eastern Skyrim and Western Skyrim, following the assassination of High King Logruf and a succession dispute in 2E431, and then lost control of the Reach to the Reachmen. One notable Reachman was Durakorich, the Black Drake, who rose to power and conquered Cyrodiil, naming himself Emperor. He established a dynasty known as the Longhouse Emperors and reinforced his connection and commitment to the empire by marrying into prominent Nibinzi Thorn family. The Longhouse Emperors ruled over only a few decades before a Colovian duke named Viren Acrelius of Chorol marshaled the armies of the Colovian estate and led them against the Ovic in open rebellion. Yeah, more rebellion. In the end, Viren killed the Emperor Leovic, the grandson of Durakuch. I cannot say his name, and declared himself emperor. Oh, yay! A second Akaviri invasion. God, for anyone listening, this shit.
I noticed that you say Khajiit similar to the way I say it, because I hear so many people say online they put more emphasis on the J. I put a lot more emphasis on the I for some reason. I say Khajiit like that, but some people say Khajiit. And I say Khajiit. Like, I was like, that's interesting. So I say Khajiit. So, but I don't know why I put so much emphasis on the I. It just feels right.
But in the game, they say Khajiit.
Huh?
In the game, most of the voice actors pronunciate it Khajiit.
Yeah.
A second Akaviri invasion of Tamriel occurred around this time. This time under Adusum Dir Kamal, whose army made landfall in northeast Skyrim and captured Windhelm, killing Queen Majoran Flamehair. Ultimately, Der Kamal's forces were defeated by Nordic Dunmer and Argonian forces. So the Dunmer were still here. And the Akavir invaders were driven into the sea. Conflicts such as the invasion led the different nations of Tamriel to band together into 3 distinct alliances: the Greater Daggerfall Covenant, the Ebonheart Pact, and the First Almerian Dominion, which is ESO.
Yeah.
The competing ideologies, logics, I can't talk. Of Tamriel alliances set them on course for war. The 3 Banners War began in earnest sometime in 2E 580, as tensions between the alliances were further exacerbated. My eyes I got that film over my eyes, making it blurry. Was the subsequent military aggression of the Empire of Cyrodiil and the Soulburst. Oh yeah, I forgot about the Soulburst. An explosion of arcane energy that occurred in the Imperial City. Each alliance saw the opportunity to overthrow the corrupt Imperial regime and install their own emperor on the Ruby Throne. The armies of the Covenant, Pact, and Dominion invaded Cyrodiil, which served as the main theater of war. However, they also launched attacks against each other's lands. In the ensuing chaos, the Daedric prince, Molag Bal, destroyed Dark Anchors and began pulling Nirn into his realm of Coldharbour to merge the 2 together, a process known as the Plane Meld. Eventually, the Plane Meld was stopped when the Mages and Fighters Guilds spearheaded an assault into Molag Bal's realm. Following the Plane Meld, many of Tamriel's provinces saw further conflict or hardships, including various Daedric plots in Morrowind, Somerset, and Blackmarsh, the return of dragons and elsewhere, and a vampiric resurgence in eastern Skyrim. So the dragons returned in the first era. In the last days of the second era, a petty king of the Golovian estates named Chulechkian Jitcoin came to power alongside the leaders of his legion. General Talos, a year later, more than half of the Cyrodiilic Empire was reclaimed or consolidated, and Julie, I'm not even going to say his name again, captured the Imperial City and proclaimed himself emperor. Skyrim Hierarch, which bitterly opposed the returns to Cyrodiilic rule, gathered their armies for a joint invasion of the Colovian West. The Nords that had come to oppose the Empire soon joined the general's forces, for when they heard this Thu'um, they believed him to be a son of Skyrim and the heir to the Empire of Man. So that's when Coglean was assassinated soon after, and Talos, later named Tiber Septim, rose to power and conquered all of Tamriel following the Tiber War. Tiber Septim, Talos. Eventually died and become a god.
Yeah. There's an interesting thing about that, because the funny thing is I've heard so many people say that, but I've actually never read that in a book anywhere in Elder Scrolls, where it actually says that Talos comes from Tiber Septim. I mean, I believe people, but I've never actually come across a book that actually says that. Like, where are they getting that information from?
Oh. Maybe. I don't know. Because I could have... Yeah, you're right, because I don't think there was anything that talks about it, because I thought Tiber Septim was a different person.
Yeah.
Than Talos. Because, like, why did he rename himself Tiber Septim?
Yeah, well, I think Tiber Septim was supposed to be his human name, and then he renamed himself to Tylos when he supposedly became a god. Like I said, I believe people, but I hear so many people say that the only time I ever hear that is from other people. I've never actually seen that presented in the game, like in a book or anything. I'm like, where are people getting this information from? I was like, I need to see if I can find the book or wherever they're getting that from.
You ready for the third era?
Yeah, go ahead.
3E0 to 3E433. The third era was a time of consolidation and expansion of the Septim Empire, established by Tiber Septim, also known as Talos, following the Tiber War. Under the rule of the Septim dynasty, Tamriel was united under a single banner.
Excuse me.
The emperor was considered the divine ruler and protector of the empire. This era saw the continuing influences of the Septim Empire, with the emperor ruling from the imperial city in Cyrodiil. The Septim emperors maintained their power and influence through the use of the Amulet of Kings, a powerful artifact with ties to the Dragonborn bloodline. That's intriguing. During this time, the mysterious and catastrophic event known as the Imperial Simulacrum occurred. It was a result of magical upheaval orchestrated by the battle mage Jorger.
Oh,
Thorn.
Jagar Tharn. Yeah.
Jagar Thorn.
Yeah, he's the bad guy in the first game. Yeah.
Who imprisoned Emperor Ural Septim the Seventh.
Yeah.
It took me a second to remember which.
I'm like, what number is that? Oh, 7. Yeah.
In an alternate dimension and assumed his identity. Thorn's actions led to a decade of chaos and unrest in the Empire, with multiple false emperors vying for power. The true emperor was eventually rescued by the hero known as the Eternal Champion, the player, bringing an end to the Simulacrum. Yay. The things we get is the player.
The player is the Eternal Champion. Yep. As long as you beat the game, anyway.
Yeah. So I can't remember any of the games covering this next part. I might be wrong. It's been forever since I played a lot of the old ones. But it's it was the activation of the Nimdium, the Dwemer artifact.
Nadium, maybe?
Yeah.
Is that how you say that?
Yeah, took a hero simply known as the Agent, later known as the hero. Okay, it's Daggerfall.
Yeah. As soon as you said Agent, I was like, oh, that's Daggerfall.
Yeah, as soon as I looked at it, I was like, oh, Hero of Daggerfall, yeah. So yeah, then you go through all of Daggerfall, which I don't have to read because most people played through it.
Yeah.
The Blight happened the next bit. Was a devastating mystical plague orchestrated by Dagoth Ur. The catastrophic disease afflicted both people on the land, spreading fear and despair throughout Morrowind.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're talking about like Dagoth Ur, yeah, how he spread that out, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I played Morrowind. I was like, I'm a little rusty on my Morrowind lore. So.
Yep. And then that's the Oblivion Crisis.
Yep.
Which we all should know the Oblivion stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then after that was the Blades and the last Septim heir, Martin Septim, embarked on a quest to close the Oblivion Gates and stop the date. That's still part of the Oblivion.
Mm-hmm.
So the third era was ended with the Oblivion Gates closing.
Right, yeah. That ended that era.
Mm-hmm. So we have how many games set in the third era?
In the third era?
The Eternal Champion, which is the
first one, yeah.
Then we have Daggerfall. Morrowind, and Oblivion.
Yeah, because I thought that Battlespire takes place in there, which is a side game. That's in the third era. And like I said, I thought Redguard did, but it does not. It actually takes place in the second era, which I did not know. So.
Yeah, the games. Most of the games take place in the third era, and then two of them in the third era. Not two of them third era, but two of them in the second era.
Yeah.
ESO second era, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's second era. Yeah.
So, and there's only one game as of right now that's actually in the fourth era.
Yeah.
Until, of course, 6 comes out, if it's going to be.
Yeah, I assume it's going to be in the fourth era, but I guess we'll find out. So.
Because, I mean, with the fourth era ending in the. Hell, most of the fourth
up
era.
Until Skyrim. Yeah, up until Skyrim came out, most of the main games always just took place a couple of years after the previous one. It wasn't really until Skyrim came out where they did that big jump thing, where they jumped like 200 years in the future. So.
Yeah, before, because once the Oblivion Gates closed, it started the fourth era.
Yeah.
Which, fourth era was marked by a changing political map across Tamriel. Notably, the Empire fell under the leadership of the Midday dynasty after a conflict known as the Storm Crown Interregnum. Somerset Isles experienced a seismic shift in power dynamics during this era. The Thalmor, a radical faction within the Altmer Society, took control of Valenwood, the home of the Wood Elves.
Oh, yeah.
And initiated this succession of the Somerset Isles from the Empire. This marked the beginning of the Third Dominion. The Thalmor's rise to power reshaped the region's political and culture, and their influence extended to other provinces, setting the stage for conflict to come. Then, of course, we had the eruption of Red Mountain in Morrowind.
Yep.
And then the Black Marsh and Elsewhere was seceded from the Empire, like Valenwood. And then the fourth era, the Great War, which was the Altmer Dominion versus the Empire. And then in Hammerfell, the Redguards gained their independence from the Empire after signing the Second Treaty of Strass-Mackay. Then the province of Skyrim became a focal point for political and cultural tension during the era when the death of High King Torygg at the hands of Ulfric Stormcloak. Of course, it ended with, it sets with the ultimate defeat of Alduin by the Dragonborn, the last Dragonborn. Yeah, Elder Scrolls Online is supposed to start at 2E582 down into well, we also have the Elder Scrolls Betrayal. Oh, that's one of the DLCs, I guess, or whatever. Betrayal of the Second Era.
Yeah, I think so.
And then, so in 582, let's see, where else is there ESO take place? Arena, Travels, Kadoki. That's 398. Or is there any other Elder? Well, that's an ESO. The Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era happened, which was 2024 game that was released. The World Shaking. The Adventures of Redguard was in 2E864. The Elder Scrolls Arena was 389 to 399. The Elder Scrolls Travels Shadowkey was 397. And Elder Scrolls Legend Battlespire was 398. Daggerfall was in 3E405 to 3E417. The Elder Scrolls Travel Stormhold was in 3E427. The Elder Scrolls Travels Dawnstar was in 3E427. Morrowind and all its stuff was 3E427. So the Travels and the Elden Morrowind was all in the same era. Oblivion happened with, I guess, only in a year. It took 1 year to solve the Oblivion situation.
They got on it. They took care of business.
The Elder Scrolls Legends Isle of Madness, it just says 4E. It doesn't say which year of 4E.
Yeah. They're probably not entirely sure.
Probably a phone game.
Yep.
The Infernal City and Elder Scrolls novel, Lord of Souls and Elder Scrolls novel. So there's an actual book we can read. Was 4E48. The Elder Scrolls Legends, the Forgotten Hero, the Elder Scrolls Legend, the Fall of the Dark, Brotherhood, the Elder Scrolls Legend, Return to Clockwork City was 4E175 through 201. And of course, Skyrim, Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim, the adventure game. I love how they call it the adventure game. Was 4E176 through 201. So there's an adventure game that predates the game we play.
Yeah.
The Elder Scrolls Blades was in only 1 year, 4E180. And the Elder Scrolls itself, the Skyrim itself, through all its DLCs, lasted only 1 year, which was 4E201. But that is a big skip from Oblivion 433, third era, to the fourth era 201 for Skyrim. That is a huge jump.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Don't you love how I started rushing the last bit since they were part of the video game?
Yeah. Well, that makes sense because, like you said, that was people are going to be more familiar with those eras because it's like, well, yeah, we know these stories, we played these games.
Yeah.
The stuff before that, they may not be quite unless they read a lot of the books or they listen to like Elder Scrolls lore podcasts and videos and stuff like that. So,
which
there's supposed to be. It's been a long time since I've been to it, but if people want to visit it, I think there's actually, like, if you don't want to spend time finding the books in the game, there's a website that has all the Elder Scrolls books on there, and you can read them all like on there. Let's see if I can find it.
That's actually kind of cool.
Been a while since I've been on there, so it might take me a second. Yeah, the Imperial Library. That's the name of the website. I'll put a link in the description to it. But yeah, if you go to the Imperial Library and you click on Game Books, it has like all the books on there. You can read them all on here. If you, like I said, sometimes I know when you're playing a video game, you're kind of in game mode and you may not be in the mood to read. So it might be convenient to read it at a separate time when you're not playing. So
does that mean I can reread all of the Argonian Maid?
I actually like reading the books when I'm playing. Sometimes when I'm playing the game, I'll just suddenly have this mode, like something clicks in my head, and I just suddenly have this desire to just want to sit down and read the books for a little. Some of the books I have on me, or if I happen to stumble up on an area where there's a lot of bookshelves around and stuff like that, sometimes I'll scan through a lot of the books. So, of course, in Daggerfall, you can actually go to they actually have libraries you can go to, which I think they have libraries in Skyrim too, don't they? If I remember correctly. Well, they have the college, and then they also have the castle. I think the castles have like some. I guess you could call them libraries. There's a lot of books in there. So,
I moved through one of my playthroughs of Skyrim. I collected every book.
Yeah,
and I just sat there one day and just read every book.
Yeah, it can be. It's pretty fun, I think. So.
Especially the Argonian Maid.
Yeah. And of course, Arena didn't have any books in it, so there's no books in that game. But so it all starts with Daggerfall. Um, but yeah, you can literally just read every book. So, and I think they even correct some of the stuff because Daggerfall, if you read the books in the game, well, I don't, maybe not on the Unity version, but the original version, if some of it, there are a lot of typos. So, and some of the books and stuff. So it's nice to, if you go to the Imperial Library website, then they correct all that from my understanding. So
that's good.
But yeah. But yeah, that's everything you needed to know about the Elder Scrolls lore.
Yeah.
Or at least some of the highlights of the timeline and stuff.
Yeah, just so many timelines. So much shit.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of want a first era game.
I do too. There's sort of two Elder Scrolls games I'd like to have, even if they were just side games, like not the main game. I would kind of like to have one that takes place in the first era, like you said, or maybe possibly even before that. Also, taking place on a different continent would be nice, somewhere outside of Tamriel. That would be kind of a cool experience.
Which means there's more to that world.
Yeah.
I would love a book game series that goes through, even though I'm not the biggest High Elf fan, but through the homeland before it was destroyed.
Yeah. That's what I'm playing as in Daggerfall right now as a High Elf, because High Elves in Daggerfall are immune to poison and stuff like that, and it's so easy to get like poisoned by spiders and scorpions and stuff. And so it's actually really convenient to play as a High Elf. So
yeah,
in that game. I've never had a much smoother time in the dungeons. Of course, I guess if you buy potions, you could always get out of it that way. But this way, I don't have to worry about potions. At least not the cure of poison or paralysis. So,
yeah, most of my people like I try every race.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the only time I don't really fully like the High Elves is in Skyrim.
Skyrim, I always play as a Nord. It feels weird to play as anything else, in my opinion. So, but I understand. I mean, the other races are there. You might as well at least try them out. So,
yeah, I still find it funny that they didn't do anything special for you if you play as a High Elf.
Yeah.
In the beginning, like I would love to be able to like play as a High Elf and choose choose their faction and be with them instead of the Nord shit, and see an alternate story with that.
Yeah.
That would actually have been a cool DLC pack.
Oh man. Or a mod, maybe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it probably is, but the problem with mods, like I tried out one mod, quite a few faction mods, but one of the main ones that I wish would have gotten done better. There's a mod where you can actually assume the throne of the High King.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And you can wage war in the Thalmor. You can wage war in the High Elves.
Yeah.
But it's just like it tells you what's going on. You don't actually get to see a war outside. I'm like, that kind of sucks. Like, I would love that mod to have been like, you actually see the fighting outside. Because, like, there's one mod that's really great. It will actually show you more periodic, like, when you're walking through, you'll periodically stumble into a fight between Stormcloaks and Imperials. Because, like, the wars are going on, but there's never actually a war until you're going through the factions' missions. There's never actual, like, conflict.
Yeah.
So there's a mod that actually adds actual active conflict. Like, you'll periodically see them try and take over each other's territories, and which will swap territory sometimes. And, like, this is intriguing. Mods are awesome.
Yeah. I've never really gotten too big into mods. My problem with mods is it's kind of time consuming to get everything set up just right. and there's some mods that conflict with one another, and it takes time to figure out what is what, and it just never feels worth it to me when I finally get it all set up correctly and I start playing it with the mods. I'm like, I don't know, that just doesn't feel like it's worth all that trouble. So, but that's just me. So, the game I've modded the most is probably Daggerfall, but the mods I've used are pretty mild. Like I've just used some of the lighting mods, and I've used a couple of mods for some extra quest stuff. But other than that, nothing really crazy stuff.
With Skyrim, I used a lot of mods.
Yeah, some people said they can't even, after playing the modded version of Skyrim, like they can't even play the vanilla version. They're like, they were like, oh, it's practically unplayable after I got done playing the mods. And I was just like, well, that's what I play is the vanilla version. It seems fine to me, but I've also never played the heavily modded version of Skyrim.
I've played multiple different types of playthroughs with Skyrim. Like I fully 100%ed what I could. Like I made multiple like characters to do alternate stuff that you can't do because of your choices with that one character. So throughout it, I've technically 100% of the entire game. I've done everything you can through multiple different characters, vanilla wise.
Right.
And then I started making mods to make. At first, I started doing mods to like make the world prettier and add some more ambiance, like actually run into periodic like groups of stormcloaks and Imperial soldiers fighting.
Yeah.
And once I got done with doing that kind of stuff, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna break this game.
Oh boy.
So I started like I did one playthrough that I call my God playthrough.
Mm-hmm.
Where I did all kinds of mods and basically made myself a dragon god. People were like, does that not get boring? Not be able to die and just slaughter? And I'd be like, no, I just love to slaughter.
Yeah.
I'm weird because like I can play a game where I'm indestructible or cheat at a game where I could never die and have just as much fun as playing it vanilla.
Yeah, it really would just depend on how the execution was, but yeah, I suppose I could. I like games that make you feel powerful, but it just kind of kind of the classic God of War games are sort of like that. I mean, it's pretty easy to kill most of the stuff, but the game's still fun.
One of the mods I put in there,
so it depends on how it executed. So
just for the fun of it, and it was so freaking cool.
Yeah.
What the freeze time shout?
Yeah.
Until I shouted again to unfreeze time.
Yeah.
So when the soldiers would march up in the fight, I'd freeze time. I'd just go through, slaughter them, then unfreeze and just watch their bodies just drop.
Yeah, you're kind of treating it sort of like some people would play like Grand Theft Auto, how they just wind up, they're not, instead of playing the game like normal, they just kind of wind up like fucking around essentially. So
yeah,
that's sort of like what you're doing. Yeah. That for the longest time, that's how I played San Andreas. I mean, me and my friend, like literally when we were in high school, most of the time we weren't even doing the missions. We were just like being stupid with stuff. Like we're testing things out and seeing like how extreme we can do certain things and stuff like that. So yeah, I could totally see that if you had a mod to make crazy stuff like that happen. So
like to be able to freeze time, it's funny because like one of the times I utilized that mod,
yeah,
I was a wood elf because I always love playing as wood elves for some reason.
Yeah, I've never played as a wood elf. I don't think I have.
And I ran up and like would launch the arrow, and it would freeze where I needed it, and just set up all these arrows, and then just unfreeze and watch them just. And it's just hilarious to me.
Somebody made a comment that every time they play Skyrim, they always wind up just playing an archer, and I was like, really? I don't think I've ever played an archer when I played Skyrim.
Dude,
I still use my axe like I always. I play Skyrim the same way I play Morrowind and Oblivion. I play those three games the exact same way. So.
Yeah, I had an entire.
It's only Daggerfall where I differ a little bit. So.
Yeah, I had an entire playthrough. I did nothing but bow. But also in one of those playthroughs, I found an amulet, and like I told you before, and this was something I never modded. This was before I knew mods exist. Well, I knew mods existed, but
Right, you just hadn't tested them out yet.
because wasn't playing on PC yet.
Right.
I'm out to where you could put console mods, and I found that item that allows me to enchant. My enchantments were 2% stronger. Disenchanted that, and I had a max enchantment skill. Enchanted a new amulet, put it on. Enchanted another amulet with the same ability, put it on. Disenchanted the other one, re-enchanted it with even more until I got this enchantment that was so freaking. This necklace that was increased my enchantment so freaking dramatically.
Yeah.
That it actually built my game. Like I was able to one shot a dragon with a hunter's bow and a steel arrow.
Jeez.
And it was something I found in the game, but I have never found it since. I found it once in one playthrough. So I'm curious on if it's just so low of a chance of dropping. And no other Skyrim player I've talked to actually has found it. But I also haven't talked to a lot of Skyrim players. But I'm kind of actually curious on if anyone else has ever found it.
I don't know.
Because it was nothing I did. It was on, you can, my wife can even determine to test it. Like, I went behind Whiterun, attacked some bandits up behind Whiterun on this platform thing, and dropped necklace. And I was like, "Ooh, what is this? Oh, that's cool. I wonder what I can do with it. Let's break things." It was supposed to be a playthrough.
Talking about all this makes me want to play Skyrim now.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah. I haven't picked it. Skyrim, I would consider it to probably be my second favorite in the series, but I haven't picked it up in a while and played it because I've been so distracted, mostly with Daggerfall. So.
The funny thing is, if you look at my Skyrim account on the Xbox One and the Series S, I have no achievements unlocked for it. But if you look on the Xbox, I have every achievement. And it's because on the Xbox One, and I haven't even played on the Series S yet. I was using mods on the consoles.
Yeah.
And it activates your ability to get achievements, which kind of irritates me. So I'm like, man, I've already busted my ass to get all these achievements. I don't want to do it again. Like, it'd be one thing if the achievements carried over from the 360 to the Xbox One, but it didn't.
Yeah.
No achievements did, and it pisses me off. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm not going to regame because getting 5,000 bounty in each hold legit is a cunt. Because you have to have 5,000 bounty in every hold actively.
Jeez.
So you have to get the bounty real quick, dip from that hold, go to the next one, get that real quick, dip from that hold, and basically that entire gameplay is fucked. You literally start a game just to do that. Or, you beat the storyline and then you do it. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you have to be meticulous how you do it because you don't want to recross over in another hold to get to one hold because you haven't done anything, because as soon as you get back in that hole, anybody that sees you is going to fucking attack you.
Yeah.
So it just becomes a pain in my ass. And it's also easier to do if you don't go to Whiterun and just level yourself up on side missions first. Because then you don't have to worry about dragons appearing while you're doing that, and make sure you have your Dawn Guard and DLC uninstalled, so the Dawn Star don't activate. Ugh. So now I just say fuck it. I got them all back in the day. I don't need them now. So I don't think they make new achievements either. Skyrim is always my favorite one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Skyrim quite a bit.
Like, I know it's cliche because a good chunk of ESO players love the Skyrim the most, but
yeah, I would definitely, to anyone new to the Elder Scrolls, I definitely would recommend Skyrim first. It's definitely the most accessible of all the games. It's the easiest to just pick up and start playing versus like, you know, some of the, like if you're not really familiar with RPGs, I'm not sure if I would recommend like Morrowind or Daggerfall or Arena because those are, they have a learning curve. So even though Arena was my very first Elder Scrolls game, but I had played other RPGs before, playing Elder Scrolls. So, and because I literally played them all in order.
yeah.
I started with Arena, and then I played Daggerfall, and then played Morrowind, and then played Oblivion, and then Skyrim last. So,
I mean, of course, like one of the reasons Skyrim's my favorite. I mean, it was the newest at the time, so I like the mechanics better. But also, I like the story better.
Yeah, I like the main quest of Skyrim. It's probably out of all the main quests, it's probably my favorite actually. Um, I admittedly, when I play Skyrim, for some reason, I never really do all that much side questing. Actually, I do a little bit, but not a whole lot. I usually stick to the main quest. So, but the other games, I always get distracted with side quest. It's hard for me to stick to the main quest. I want to stick to it, but then I get distracted with something, and before I know it, I'm way off doing something. But that never happens to me in Skyrim. So,
yeah, I feel like the old games have better side quests.
yeah.
Like
Admittedly, that's one of my biggest gripes with Skyrim is because I love the Fighters Guild. It's always my favorite guild because that's the type of character I always play because that's my play style. But I don't like the Eternal Champions or whatever they're called in Skyrim. Like, I don't like the quest line that much. It's just boring to me. I don't like the werewolf thing, and it's not my cup of tea. And I feel like I really hope they don't. I hope they do something different in 6 because I did not care for that at all. So personally, but the good thing is you don't have to play it. You can always do something else. So.
That is one thing I definitely added in the mod play is the Fighter Guild return.
Yeah.
There was a return of the Fighters Guild mod. And people actually, had actual voice lines and actual missions and this and that through the Fighters Guild, and
yeah.
And they also added arenas combat to it and fight. Also, it's just fun, like there and boxing a motherfucker to
death. Yeah, sometimes I just want things to be simple. Sometimes I just want to be sent on a quest to go kill something and then come back and collect my reward, Is that too much to ask? Yeah.
Problem I have with Skyrim is there's a lot of betrayal in their missions.
There are, yeah.
Skyrim betrays you. The Dark Brotherhood betrays you. Everyone betrays you.
They're all just backstabbing each other.
And also, another problem with side quest is okay, so am I the Dragonborn? Am I the seer or the seeker or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
You get all these titles, and I'm like, man, there's too many.
Yeah,
I'm feeling Daenerys Targaryen at this point. Of course, that would be pre the show, but I mean the books were still out. But I am Eric, the Seeker, the Dragonborn, the. You get a lot of titles. I don't remember how many. If you get a shit ton of other titles and side quests from the other games, though.
Yeah,
because it's been so long since I played those.
Well, I guess that's about all the time we have today. So, hopefully you enjoyed our Elder Scrolls conversation. Yeah. And yeah, like I said, we, all the links are in the show notes for YouTube channel, Instagram, all that stuff. And like I said, I will put a link for the Imperial Library website, so you can, if you haven't seen the website, you can at least check it out. So
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Anything else to add, Eric?
No, just do the typical, comment, like, subscribe on YouTube. I'll try to read all the comments. And if there's one that sticks out, I'll definitely mention it. Other than that, no.
All right. Well, we hopefully enjoyed this episode, and I guess we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.